All right, we just want to welcome you today to Kingdom Talks. My husband Gil Hodges is still out of town, so you're stuck with Bralynn, Newby, and myself. And we're excited about what...
We're not stuck, we're blessed with you.
We're excited about what we're doing tonight. And so it's funny, we've been getting some strikes and some interesting things going on, things being pulled down. So we're not going to use our regular intro, but I'm just going to share a few things from the intro as we get started and just encourage you to take this time to share on the different platforms with your friends and your networks. And so we just want to welcome you to Kingdom Talks, where we engage in next age conversations with transitionaries. Our goal is to support believers in finishing the closing age well and awaken to the revelations of the opening age. Kingdom Talks is a platform of love, unity, and discovery. And we invite you to support our movement, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you to those of you who support us financially. Members have access to our shows commercial-free, as well as behind-the-scenes conversation with our guests. All of our media links and Patreon information can be found on kingdomtalksmedia.com. And now, here we are.
Here we are. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Ironically, I happen to be uploading one of our episodes to YouTube, and it's taking my bandwidth, and I'm trying to share on Facebook, and it's not going over there. So I believe that we do have Karen, our wingman, today. And so Karen, if you wouldn't mind, share, because I can't. I don't have the bandwidth on to go over on Facebook. So Lord, help us for our technology today, but we are going to talk about a great subject. And so, Adina, we never have to suffer through you. We love you as a host. So
Thank you.
Thank you. You are so welcome.
Well,
so tonight, I really, go ahead.
Well, I'm just really glad that you have written an article in the Metamorphosis magazine and called The Big Shift. And it's in issue 7, the latest one. And we just thought tonight would be a good time to talk a little bit about that content and, you know, what your heart is behind it. What prompted you to write it?
Well, this article actually has a little bit of history, because it was the very first article when Janine, I was with Janine when she first started the Metamorphosis magazine, and we just decided that it's going to be for risk takers. And I said, I will do a column, and my column is called Warrior Cry. And at the time, I was doing a lot of warrior stuff. I had the Warriors Arise and different things. You know, this was in 2015-16 timeframe. And so I called my column Warrior Cry, and I said, okay, so I'm just going to write whatever God tells me. And you'll see as we read the article today, he just really, I had a like, no more. I am standing up for, you know, what's right. And you'll see the big shift. And so that's what happened in 2016. It was the very first article. It was the flagship article for the flagship episode. I'm on Kingdom Talks right now. Yeah. Issue, not episode, of Metamorphosis. And we just redid it for the current issue, which is issue number 7, as you mentioned. So it just dropping things. It looks like this if you go to metamorphosis.com and click on the current issue. This is what the article looks like, and this is the picture that I was referencing with you can see it here. There we go. With the Chris Carter the other day, because that's that's beautiful wood table, and it was so beautiful, and I told it was so beautiful. I said, let's do a selfie, and so I laid on it and took the picture. I know, I'm crazy. I'm a tree hugger. I get it. But anyway, let's move on to the article. So, I know. I'm nuts, and that's why you love me. So there.
Yep.
Okay. What do you say to that? Right? Okay, I'm just going to start reading, and then you can feel free to jump in and break, and we'll just have conversation along the way.
Okay, sounds good.
So my heart went cold, and my blood boiled as my jaw dropped. in a business seminar in Spiritual Intuitive Guide, was getting coaching on how to raise her rates because she was only getting $5,000 for a 1-hour phone call every other week for 3 months to help mystics access their power and find their grounding point, end quote. Yes, people are so lost and disoriented that they pay spiritualists $833 an hour to get grounded. Okay, right?
Yep.
Meanwhile, Christians will going to a 3-day retreat to have a deeper encounter with God for $297. Something is horribly wrong with this picture. Be honest now. Were you thinking that was horribly wrong for someone? It's horribly wrong for someone to make $833 an hour? If so, that's what's horribly wrong. A man in Boston, yeah.
Well,
a man in Boston found out that. Okay, go ahead.
Let's just stop there because it was kind of interesting that we didn't talk about this beforehand, but actually what we're talking about this Sunday night at Kingdom Equipping Center is about our relationship with money. And so it's very interesting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so, it's been a topic that, I've been pondering and, processing with the Lord because, I grew up in a home where, it was thought very, very righteous to be poor. In fact, when I was it would have been about 9 years old, and my parents built this beautiful house in the country. And one of my friends came to see it for the first time. And when she saw it, she goes, "Oh, Adina, wow, you're rich." And I was like, no. Because, I knew the verse, that it's harder for a rich man to go through the eye of the needle, that for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I was like, I want to go to heaven. I can't be that rich man because then I can't go to heaven. That was my whole mentality. And so it is a paradigm shift for many of us who were raised that poverty is righteous, and to glory in our poverty.
Yeah, it's almost like poverty has become the idol.
Yes.
Instead of money. Right? We want to flip it on its head. So let's swing the opposite way and make poverty the idol.
So I'm not going to give it all away. I encourage you to watch Kingdom Equipping Center live on Sunday night because the stumbling block I had was the love of money is the root of all evil. As I began to do research on it, it really means a lot differently than we think. So I'll just give that as a teaser. Encourage you to watch Sunday night on Kingdom Equipping Center.
Well, that is a teaser. Now I want to watch. No, I already do. That's good. Okay, so moving on in the article. A man in Boston found out that his 6-year-old son was being taught about homosexuality and tried to remove him from that class. The court ruled that parents did not have the right to protect their children from teaching contrary to their religious beliefs. That was over 10 years ago. Now, a regular question upon entry into preschool asks which gender your 4-year-old prefers to identify with. Something is horribly wrong with this picture. Over 10,000 churches closed their doors when an estimated 1.2 million people left the church in 2015. Don't tell my parents, but I was one of them. Okay, now, excuse me while I shift my little tablet over here to get to the next one. Okay. I didn't leave the church because I had lost faith. Quite the opposite. As I began a deep spiritual journey, surrendering to inner healing and developing a true relationship with my Father, I saw how irrelevant and fake churchianity was. I saw my church, where I faithfully served and engaged in Bible studies and women's ministries and worship team and outreach, striving to rally to build the congregation to 10,000 people. They, like tens of thousands of churches across the world, desperately tried to keep the people happy by pouring buku bucks into high-tech production equipment for more lights, more sound, more cameras, more fog, more, except more spiritual meat. They were stuck in the old paradigm. Go ahead.
Well, I think there's a lot we can talk about there, and I don't know if you want to share more, of your personal journey along that line. And we do want to preface it with, because our foundation is love, honor, and respect. This is not speaking against the church. They're doing the best that they can, the best that they know how, and they think that all of these things will attract more people, which will get more people for Jesus. And so, right. they're doing the best they can with what they have. But I believe that the biggest thing is it's lost relationship. And really that's the foundation of the tree of life versus the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is relationship. So tell us a little more about your journey in that.
Actually going, oh, well, it was identity for me. Mm-hmm. It was learning who I was, and literally coming into relationship with my feelings, my emotions, because mm-hmm. I was all about my head. I'm a smart cookie, and I was a go-getter, and you do this and do that and do and do and do and do instead of be.
Yeah.
And so I was learning my identity, who I was, without all of the doing. And so that's kind of what I came through. I came through Dakamas Project, which is actually where I met you and Gil.
Yep.
So that was a huge, a deep, eye-opening experience. And I had to go, I went through it several times, actually, in different ways, and really just kept going deeper and deeper into understanding who I was, who God created me to be, how I am unique, and not just I'm a child of God, which everyone can say, but who are you uniquely, and how did he create you, and those kinds of things that I had never heard before in all of my life growing up in church. I never heard it.
Yeah.
Never heard it.
It's
so that's kind of where it came from.
And it's so key and important, and that foundation of relationship, and the identity piece is the relationship with ourselves. Everything about the enemy is separation. Everything about God is connection and oneness and union. And so it's an amazing journey. One thing I would say is that being in this movement for a couple of years is, sometimes people make that transition because it's something new and exciting, but you can see the same patterns, so like instead of before, going to church, doing all these things, reading your Bible, all that, they've just transferred everything over to, well, now we do ascensions, now we talk with Enoch, now we do this, now we do that. And it's like, it's not about just doing something different, but it's about learning the heart of relationship so that we walk it out in a completely new way. And then it, I don't know how it is for everybody else, but the last couple of months have been so transformational, learning new things. And it's like, oh my goodness, and so we're all on this spiritual journey that keeps on growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's amazing, because it's relationship. It's not that we've figured out the latest, techniques or the latest keys to doing something. It's about exploring this intimate, amazing relationship with our Creator, and connecting with Him, with ourselves, and with one another. And it's incredible.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. So actually, I talk about the old paradigm here. So they were stuck in an old paradigm of saying, "Come ye," which we were just mentioning, when Jesus said, "Go ye." Mm-hmm. So, we just said they're trying to attract people so that they can preach the gospel, which is a good thing to preach the gospel, but it's the old paradigm of everybody's got to come because my thing is cooler than the next guy.
Yep.
So they were preaching the gospel of salvation when Jesus preached the gospel of kingdom. They are not accessing the power of the Holy Spirit by expressing his gifts. I was seeing more Holy Spirit outpouring singing in my car on the way to church than once I entered the doors. The meat that was lacking was practical training in how to put the kingdom principles to work in the marketplace. Now, I pick marketplace because that's my dealio, right? But there's lack of training on how to put the kingdom principles of love and relationship in every area. I just pick marketplace because that's me. So it's my article. I can say what I want.
Well, Bralynn, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey in the marketplace? Has that always been who you are? And how did you find that? I know some people think like ministry is, from the old paradigm, ministry is more important than, the marketplace. Or were you always there?
It never would have occurred to me, Adina, that ministry was more important than the marketplace.
That's good.
I would have gone, what? Yeah. I was never drawn to it. I grew up Lutheran, and my dad probably still is, I don't know, whatever they call those guys, elders maybe, or deacon. I don't know what they call them. He's one of those guys. So, but it never occurred to me that was something that I would want to do, or that was a good thing, or that, you know what I mean? It was just that I didn't put that on a shelf as a higher level thing. I didn't understand any of it.
So for you, was it more compartmentalized? Like you went to church on Sunday and then you just did your work during the week? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. My goal, getting through school, I wanted to be an engineer. And so even in high school, I was taking college courses and doing all of this extra stuff because I wanted to go into engineering. But then I realized that architecture was cooler, more creative, maybe, I thought. Yeah. I don't know. So I went into architecture instead. But point being that I was still a way overachiever, unless it was too hard. But everything came to me easy. So it was one of those things where I loved what I did, and so it wasn't hard for me. Mm-hmm. So, I pursued that, and I pursued that in place of relationships. Okay. I burned out people around me. I burned out my first husband. It was all about my career. Mm-hmm. So that's my story.
How did you transition into the work you do today? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I talk about this in Spirit Centered Business, but I guess I've not really talked about it on Kingdom Talks. But so what happened was I had earned 5 promotions in 6 years with the Department of Veterans Affairs. That was my first job out of college. And I was just soaring through and flying, and I had moved around all over the country. The government moved me, and I got to a place where they literally made a new position for me because I had maxed out where I was, and I was doing this project. I was one of 15 people across the country who were working on this new. It's called. What's it called? It's a CAD program where it moved the spatial relationships, and you could do not project management. You could do facility management through the CAD drawings. Huh. And so I was working on this beta testing, and I was one of the hubs. And so they sent me to training all over the country. Well, at one of these trainings, I met the people who do it for GM, General Motors. Mm-hmm. And as I was doing this for the government, I said, listen, once I get done with this project, they gave me $500,000, and I did this project, and it was amazing. And I said, once I get done with this, I need you to either create me a new job or I'm going to go. And I got done with that job. They all went, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm so glad you did this. And there isn't another job for you. We already created that one. So I'm like, okay. And as soon as General Motors found out about that, they hired me away. So I flip-flopped to get across the country again, went to do facility management for General Motors. Yada, yada, yada. Nobody needs to hear about all that. Point being, I just kept transitioning and up and up and up and doing this amazing stuff. And then all of a sudden, Bralynn Newby got fired. What?
Talk about transition times in our lives.
Transition, right? Holy shamoly, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Yeah. So then I started working for a college, and it was one of the largest community colleges in the United States, and I was the manager of publications. And I had graphic designers that worked for me, and I managed from 5 campuses, everything in the marketing area, everything that could possibly be written about the campus or for the campus or for the college. I did that. And then that was supposed to be a temporary job, and they loved me. It was only supposed to be 3 months while the manager did something else, and it ended up to be 2.5 years. And, it was totally a God thing, Long story. Anyway, when that temporary assignment left, I came back to California with another job, and yada, yada. I'm digressing here. Finally, 2009. I lost my job to a layoff because of the construction industry. Now I was back into architecture. And so that's when I said, okay, that's it. I am not going to be at the whims of someone else with my career anymore. I really wanted to start my own thing. And so I asked God, I said, okay, so I've got all of this project management experience, all of this, I just zoomed. See?
Yep.
I told you, it's just random. I didn't do anything. My hands were right here. I am not a magician. So I asked God, I said, well, I've got the public speaking. I've been in theater, and I was on stage for 20 years, yada, yada. Before all of this, or through it, all of that, I was in doing that, and I love public speaking, and then I had that publication experience, and so I put them all together, and so now I'm the message architect, and I build people instead of building buildings. That was a really long way to tell you all of that story.
It was interesting.
That's how it happened.
Because it is kind of a switch from architecture to marketing and what you do today, so it was good.
Well, what I'm really good at is putting the parts and pieces together and creating the plan and the system, and then putting together the team to execute. And those skills are the same in architecture as in what I do right now. So I just pull out people's story and their message that's on their heart, what they want to teach to the world, all of their experience and the pain and the messes that they've been through. And we just organize it in such a way that it's monetized so that they can see the transformation in their clients that they want to see. So I work with, coaches and speakers, and, sometimes people have written a book, but there's not any monetization there because it's not fleshed out, right? So that's when I started working with you guys with Kingdom Equipping Center, and you get lost in the weeds sometimes with some of the tech and, building out systems and that kind of stuff. But the overall thing is how to monetize your message, really, to get it out there in a way that that transformation can happen. Because if you're the best kept secret, you're not doing what God created you to do. And if your destiny is to transform lives, you better be able to do that. And you better be able to support yourself and keep the roof over your head and the food on the table while you're doing it.
Yes.
Sorry, now I'm getting on my soapbox.
So in that, you made your shift in 2015 out of the traditional church model to where you are today. And so any other things in the midst of that you'd like to share?
Well, there was painful stuff too. As I was coming out and understanding who I was and learning my identity, I no longer would put up with the abuse of my husband, and he wasn't having any of that. So we got a divorce. I tried to take him to counseling, and it takes two. It really takes
does.
two. So I tried to, yeah, exactly. I tried to do whatever I could. I stayed in the marriage way too long, just trying to be faithful and trying to make it work out, because when I signed, it was a covenant for me, seriously, I didn't want to be unmarried, divorced.
Yeah.
He was the love of my life, and we were just like this as long as it was going his way. So, and I let it be that way because I didn't know who I was, so that was really, really hard. And actually it took the divorce was crazy. It took so long, and actually it was just finalized a few months ago, and I went through the mourning again, not so much because of the man, but because of the dream, of being, growing old together, and having someone who is spiritually my equal, who could be spiritual head of the house, which was a huge, huge thing, because he wouldn't go to church with me. He wouldn't, do anything. So that was really hard. It was a dark, dark time, but through it, I trusted God, and I had you and Gil, and I had Larry and Lori Hill, and, Doug Talks, and you guys are so dear to me because you walked through that whole, tough time with me. You saw it all. You helped me do court cases and, ascensions, and the best of our knowledge at the time.
Yeah.
Working with Holy Spirit and
the cool
healing.
thing is that that's expanding, and I love that, is we're getting more and more understanding of tools and relationships in such a way to work through those things. We were talking before the thing about frequencies, and so how is your frequency shifted? And, if you want to talk about the church as well, what are you learning about that?
Yeah, okay. Sure. Well, one of the things that is really coming to the forefront in this next age is the awareness of how God created the universe and how the frequencies are so important. And that's why I love that our opening video with the frequencies that we had been using. We didn't use it today because we've been getting gigged, and we were wondering if it's because of that video, even though we are using it by permission from the man who created the video. But anyway, so I believe that this is what's happening, is that the frequency of the church in the old paradigm, while they're doing it well, is still the frequency of religion and doing. And, if something's not working in your life, you need to pray more, you need to fast, you need to read your Bible more, you need to do more and more and more. And it's all about doing. And the frequency of the next age that we're shifting into is the frequency of love.
Yes.
And it's about that relationship, and so that we really want that higher frequency of love, peace, joy, bliss, those kinds of things, rather than the lower frequencies of shame, guilt, condemnation. Oh, you didn't make it to church this Sunday. The church lady thing, right?
Yes.
So that's I believe the shift that's literally drawing people. And Arthur Burke said the greatest move of God in the last 20 years has been, or the greatest move of God is moving 28 million people out of the church over the last 20 years. So it's really happening in us and through us, and not through a church building, and not through the traditional organized hierarchy of what the church is like.
What I would say about that is a lot of people have gotten, disenfranchised from church, and they've just left. And, they're isolated. They don't have any community. And I know it's tough, but I do believe that God's plan for us is in community. And so
Absolutely.
The encouragement is to find a spiritual community. And honestly, my husband loves the online stuff and connecting all over the world, because that's who he is. And I'm more like intimate. I like the, groups where I can see you face to face. I can hug you. I can touch you. I can see your eyes. And so honestly, when he started doing all this stuff online, I was kind of like, okay, but, as long as we have the face to face stuff with people in the flesh, But it's been neat to see, as things have grown, and, people come and they're like, we don't have any community where we are. And so I'm I'm grateful for technology that can connect us. My encouragement is that it's real. It's not just fake. I can listen to sermons all day long, but it's not a spiritual community. It's where there's some interaction, where it's not just one way.
Well, yeah, not only that, but what I find myself doing is consuming, because I'm a learner and a teacher and a trainer. And so I love to just take in information. What I love about the ecclesia and what you guys are doing with Kingdom Equipping Center is that there's an implementation piece, that ascending and activating what we learned is so critical. And then obviously continuing it through between the times that we meet is really good. And yeah, speaking of community, it's been, I left my husband in January of 15. So it's about time that I have some more community here, if you know what I mean. Oh my gosh. God has got the perfect man for me, I know.
Yep.
Right?
Right timing, right frequency.
The right frequency, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay, should we go back to the article for a second here?
Sure.
Okay. I do get to talk about your husband in here, so I want to. Okay. Yes, we talked about the meat that was lacking. Okay, so let me just repeat this one sentence. The meat that was lacking was practical training in how to put kingdom principles to work in the marketplace. So how do you solve a problem you can't solve? How do you get funding for a God-inspired idea that could save lives? How do you work with the laws of God's universe in your business instead of fighting them? What I heard about this in church? Crickets. Maybe I missed the workshop, but I never once even saw something as simple as how to structure your calendar to be more productive, to accomplish the goals that would get you to your God-ordained destiny. Oh, that's right. The church never taught us to set goals in alignment with our natural abilities, strengths, and passions. In fact, it seemed to me that the only goals worth attaining had to do with building a new nursery or funding a mission trip. I felt dissatisfied, unfed, marginalized. I realized that something was horribly wrong. Like many of my fellow dischurched, I felt the shift long before that I knew what it was or could describe it. With the religious spirit clinging to me, I felt guilty and alienated by my own choice to no longer spend my Sunday mornings in a place where I felt disconnected, disappointed, and even drained. I was done. And yes, we are collectively called the Duns. In 2014, I created Spirit-Centered Business because I could no longer live my life and do my business compartmentalized from who I was and what God was calling me to do. And I kept meeting people who felt the same thing. Of course, I didn't have the words for it at the time. I just felt that the shift was stirring inside of me, a burning idea to get the message out there. And I had no idea that people like Dr. Lance Wallnau, Ed Silvoso, or Os Hillman had already been teaching this. I didn't discover them until late 2015. All I knew was that the way Christ followers did their life and vocation could no longer be separated from the way they did spirituality. In fact, the only way we were going to truly make the difference in the world that we feel the deep calling to make was not to do either one anymore. We need to shift into being who God created us to be, using our talents and skills to fulfill our destiny and properly represent God in the marketplace. Spirit-Centered Business started out teaching the science and practical application behind the principles in the Bible. There was a lot of justifying and bridge building and sugarcoating going on to try to satisfy the offended religious spirits I encountered. I felt like my hands were tied behind my back. My voice was stifled, and I actually got counseling for it. And let me just, I didn't really go into it here, but I had another partner, and she had a religious, spirit, legalist, and she thought that I was into New Age and took me into counseling to help me. I'm like, oh, well, I just went along because I knew that, God was showing me and revealing some deeper truths about how he created the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that maybe just doing my part to heal the relationship again, I would help her see what that, the truth too, but it didn't work out that way. So I'm so glad Gil came along.
Well, and a theme kind of woven through that is kind of the disconnect versus connection.
Yes.
And and again, it's connecting or disconnecting over belief systems instead of it being based on relationships. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles, that we face in making this transition, is the accusation of, well, you're doing new agey stuff or whatever. And instead of being willing to build those bridges in relationship to going, I know you and I care about you and I believe in you. And so I may not understand your journey, but I'm going to keep connected in relationship. We got I got a message from someone who was saying that, someone was accusing them of something or not agreeing with their beliefs and was kicking them out of, an area of leadership. And, it's just like, particularly when there's been long-term relationship, is how do we walk this out in the love, honor, and respect, even when, we may not agree 100%, and as Gil often says, none of us will agree. There's a lot of things that, Gil and I, don't necessarily agree in our beliefs on, but we're committed heart to heart. And so you work things out within the body of Christ because we're one. And so it's not this separation, disconnect. It's like, okay, Yahweh, what are you doing in this age to connect us together? And, I believe in this transition, if we don't keep that connection, we can be just in well, we believe differently than you believe, so we're, separating. And that is never part of God's plan as we move forward.
I can tell you, Adina, that's hard for me. It's hard to open up fully and be vulnerable with someone that I know does not believe the way I do. Now, obviously, there is a guarding of your heart, and that you don't want to open up totally to someone who's, it's not safe, mm-hmm. right? But I can tell you this too, that the revelation about the restoration of all things has helped me mm-hmm. to think, okay, well, they're gonna get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're pre.
And we're all connected.
Yeah.
The connection or the disconnect is simply an illusion. Yeah. It's a deception. It's the darkness, because in Christ we are all one. And so trying to go, well, you believe this, I'm going to believe that, so we're separating. It's like, you can try that, but it's impossible because we're one in Christ. And so, anyway, it's just fascinating.
And yeah, we're one in physics as well. I mean, with quantum physics, we all came from the same source, and if the source were to turn away, we would all die.
Yeah.
And because of quantum entanglement, there's a lot more than just, the spiritual practice connection. There's so much more. And I was just thinking about this. I had an opportunity to run away to Tahoe last night, and how the snow is on the mountains and then it runs down and you see the clouds. And did you know that Lake Tahoe evaporates enough water in a 24-hour period that would be enough water that this whole city of Los Angeles would be able to have that water?
Wow, that's amazing.
I know, but then here's where I was going with that, is that the water never leaves the planet.
Yeah.
All connected.
Yes.
It's in us. It's in the trees. It just moves around and shapes and looks different. And, one day it's in the clouds and the next day it's in the ocean. And one day it's in a tree and the next day it's in me. And, it's all the same molecule of water can, be in everyone.
Yes.
At one point along the history and along the timeline, it's so crazy. This is so amazing. I geek out on that stuff.
And so I believe that one of the biggest paradigm shifts for us as we come into this next age is connectedness, connected with, what you mentioned before, ourselves, internally, with our emotions, with our mind, and with our body, our connection with nature, our connection with everyone on the planet, and our connection with God supremely. That we're in Him, we live and move and have our being. And so it's just, instead of getting split up and separated by beliefs, is we're coming together in love and unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's the foundational part of Spirit-Centered Business. It was always the three-way alignment, aligning your head and your heart. And this speaks directly to my story, your intellect and your passion, because I wasn't allowing my passion to come out. It was always about my intellect, and having that disconnect. So having that alignment, aligning with God and his plan for you and for your destiny, and how He designed you, how He wired you, and all of that stuff. And then aligning with the universe. And I specifically say the universe because it's spiritual laws that He put in place. It's other people in the communication that we have with them, and that relationship connection, and aligning with nature.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh. Okay, back to the big shift. Okay. So I was talking about, this was when I was doing the Spirit-Centered Business the first time. I knew I was supposed to reach people who would be turned off by Christianese. And let me switch pages here in my lovely tablet here. I love this app. Okay, I have to show you guys this. This is really cool. It turns the page like that. It's like, okay, now I'm squirrel. Okay. I knew that people would be turned off by Christianese and offended by Jesus. And this was because I had a lot of New Age people and friends, and I still do, which wouldn't serve my purpose. I can now put language to it that I didn't have then. And what was going on was that I am not an evangelist sharing the gospel. I'm an apostle, shifting the culture for kingdom so that the ground will be ready for the evangelists to come in. We just talked about that with Brian Orme, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good episode too. Since this article was first published in December of 2016, I've learned and experienced so much more of God's revelation of how the spirit realm works. I'm honored to bring on Gil Hodges as the new partner to relaunch Spirit-Centered Business with a whole new dimension of teaching, access. We now have tools and understand how to access heavenly realms for wisdom, resources, divine connections, supernatural favor, angelic help in carrying out your mission, and to see what the purpose and destiny of your business really is, to name a few. We will still have to deal with backlash, but now we're prepared. Newsflash, the spirit of religion does not want any boat rocking. Culture shifting is highly frowned upon. In my oh-so-sweet voice, with a cherubic smile on my lips, I say, screw that. Okay. God is turning everything on its head. If I were doing a video right now, which I just happen to be doing, I would say, wake up! We need to shake off the contentment of our comfortable, don't get involved lives. It's no longer acceptable to remain silent. It's no longer acceptable to drift along, being lulled to complacency by the hypnotic rhythm of our culture. The coddling and spoon-feeding warm fuzzies to pacify the spirit of religion needs to stop. I'm really here because I love you. If it offends you when I say religion sucks, I suggest that some inner healing might be appropriate.
I used to really, really hate change, and I was one of those very stuck in a box, and I didn't like, things shifting very much at all. And it used to be, okay, well, when is things going to settle down back to normal? And
Right.
just realizing in this next age, transition, change is just a part of life. We have to make that shift. There isn't a new normal that we sit down in and you know
And hasn't it been going exponentially faster and faster, right?
definitely.
We don't even get comfortable because, God's doing something new around every corner.
He definitely is. And I love the encouragement in your article about getting involved and getting connected and having a voice and standing up. The cool thing I think about where we're at now is it's not the way it used to be.
No,
You're not
no.
talking about going and picketing pro-life centers or pro we know what I mean, abortion centers.
Yeah, I
and
know what you mean.
and so it's that place where we only do what we see the Father doing. So there's no guilt, there's no shoulds, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. It's like, okay, I'm created in this world that I'm connected to, and God wants me to interact and to be his steward in this place. And so sometimes it's heavenly stuff that we're doing to bring that shift, and then sometimes he asks us to do something in the natural. And so a group of us are meeting at the state capitol on Sunday for a time of prayer. I don't know what all is going to happen, but sometimes there is something important about putting your feet where
Yeah.
places of authority are.
Yep.
And so it's such a relief, because I think I used to, you'd listen to people testify about, their gifting, and they kept winning people to the Lord in Starbucks, and I'd go, oh, maybe I'm not even a Christian, because, I'm more of an introvert, and so I don't talk to anybody in Starbucks, and I must be a less than Christian because I'm not doing what they're doing. But that realization is I only do what I see the Father doing. So there's no pressure. Father's going to ask me to do only stuff that he created and designed me to do. He's not going to.
Exactly. Your design, or your desire points to your design.
Yeah.
And so if you're not desiring that thing, you're not designed for it.
Yay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He created us to be little creators, right?
Yeah.
So what we're interested in creating is what he created us to create.
Exactly.
He didn't make us so that we would look at what somebody else is creating and going, "Ooh, that looks cool. I want to create that."
Yeah.
Which so many of us get caught in doing that, and me included. So, yeah. Now I get to create my own little thingy.
Yep.
Okay, so I would suggest if you do get offended by things like that, seriously, I really didn't, I have a sarcastic bent, but seriously though, get the inner healing that I got and all of us get, and I still need more of. Get the inner healing. It's so worth it, because the army of God needs you. And no one can fulfill the destiny that you're designed to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can't get over ourselves, we're not serving anybody to the full capacity that God had created us to do, right?
Very true.
Yeah. So we need to shift. I said the army of God needs you.
Oh.
You are not reading this by chance. So you're not listening to me by chance. We need to shift the way we do everything. My focus is business, so my warrior cry is to break off the barriers of the poverty mindset, to smash down the strongholds of lies that tell you and me you're not good enough, not smart enough, not connected enough, not funded enough, yada, 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 right? The kingdom of God is enough. It has enough and will always be enough. You and I are sons and daughters of the creator of everything that we could possibly want or dream of. And I'm calling anyone who thought that making $833 an hour was wrong to shift. That's what's actually wrong with that scenario, is that kingdom people are allowing Satan to go in and show people how to access their power and get grounded. We have the solution. We can provide the real McCoy, not the counterfeit. We need to get over our heebie-jeebies about serving the woo-woo crowd or the nightclub crowd or the inner city crowd or whatever, and just dive in. Start transferring the wealth of the wicked to the kingdom. God can trust us with that money a whole lot more than he trusts them with it. And it's still about an us and them in here. I guess I haven't quite shifted yet, right?
Yep, we're all in that process. We're making that shift.
Yeah, and it's also a contrast to show, to make a point. It's not a contrast in, like Christopher Carter was saying. There's context that needs to be revealed here, and that's why the contrast is there. Okay, so let's see. It's not just about monetary wealth the Bible is referring to. The secular world has embraced the counterfeit of spiritual principles that God intended for his kids. While they meditate, visualize, and cleanse their ancestral bloodlines, we hide our head in the sand thinking that these are of the devil. They're not. Satan is no creator, he's just a thief. There is a wealth of information and practices out there that we need to switch my little page, demystify and put the biblical version into place, which is why the time is now to learn spirit-centered business strategies. As a side note, Satan is also catering to our kids. When we step aside in our career-chasing busyness, in our hold on, I'm going there, not my job mindset, he's telling them what to wear, what games to play, what music to listen to, what to think. And it's not the progressive liberal media's fault, nor the political machine of government's fault. It's our fault. We dropped the ball by not rocking the boat and standing up for biblical values. We need to retrain to become relevant and influential in culture again. We need to get our religious mountain and break barriers of relationships, of economics, of politics, of art and entertainment, of media and of education. But first, we need to conquer our own fears. We need to get over our poverty mindset, our doubt, our fear, unworthiness, and issues. There are people on the other side who desperately need our help. Did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I did. Sometimes part of the reason we don't do stuff is we just get overwhelmed and we think that, what can I do in the face of, overwhelming evil? And the cool thing is, as we understand who we are, A, we only do what we see the Father doing, and then B, that every little, because of the frequency and entanglement, every little bit of thing that I do in the light spreads the light.
Yes.
And
that's
so
a great way to put it.
It's just doing the things that God has put before us, the relationships that he's given us to influence. And we may think it's a little tiny thing and insignificant, but in his economy, because it's working together with what he's doing and others are doing around the world, it has impact. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to encourage people with that, because I think a lot of times, we just throw up our hands because we get overwhelmed. And it's like, what can I do? It's like, I can sign my name on a petition. What does that do? But understanding that as we do what we see the Father doing, he's bringing that shift, and he's bringing the light through us in ways that will have impact. And so I just want to encourage our viewers in that, not to feel like, oh no, now I got to go out and do more things, or now I got to do, but to go, hey, let's wake up the shift here and in here and begin to move forward in listening, in connection with Father, what he's called us to do, to be that light and to shine wherever he's placed us.
And actually, part of just being the frequency of love mm-hmm. does shift things, yes. Right? And so not only can we, when we're truly who we are and we're at peace and in joy and, having love in our relationships and with ourselves, that is actually fighting against the enemy. Because the enemy would have us in confusion and loathing ourselves and feeling unworthy. And so even just maintaining that frequency of loving ourselves mm-hmm. is warfare. Yes. It's healthy. And then also, Adina, what I love is that we're learning how to administrate from the heavens. Yes. To literally go see, okay, God, what do you have us to do over over a situation or a region or, a people group or whatever he has us do, learning to do that effectively and working with the spiritual principles and the spiritual beings that
Yes.
We're encountering and starting to understand, even though we are so far from knowing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We know one grain of sand on a whole ocean full of beaches, right?
Yep.
Compared to what we will know. But it's taking responsibility for that one grain of sand, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it all has meaning, in relationship with Yahweh. So, Bralynn,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you not to read any more of your article because I
Sure.
want people to go to Megamorphosis magazine
There you
and
go.
finish that article because it is really good. But I would like you to share with our listeners, any more information about how they can get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with the magazine.
Sure. Okay, so Megamorphosis magazine. I'm just going to put this up here so you see the name. Megamorphosismagazine.com. And that's where you will see the current issue is issue 7. And that's where this article is and many others. I've written several with Dr. Caroline Leaf. In fact, I think this is issue 6. Oh, actually, in issue 6, I wrote an article called Empowered Identity. And this is my story of how God showed me how to actually war from my identity. Yeah, so there's a lot of this is just a great, it's like a coffee table book. So yeah, go ahead and get that. So as far as Spirit-Centered Business, Adina, I want to just let everybody know that we do have a free webinar coming up that we're going to be going into the true desires, which is that frequency of love, right? How do we get what our true desires? Well, we have to, work with the frequencies. So we're going to be doing that, and you can get that on spiritcenteredbusiness.com/desire is where you can sign up for those webinars. They're coming up, I think, the week after next, and Gil will be working with me on those. And then, of course, from those, there's a workshop that we're going to be doing. I'm excited about that. And then, of course, if you are a speaker or a coach or consultant and you would like me to help you monetize your message, or at least, or even pull it out of you, understand what your message is and all of that, you can get a hold of me at activate@BralynnNewby.com, or just go to BralynnNewby.com. My last name is not on the Zoom. I wonder how that happened. Well, whatever. It's Bralynn Newby, Newby. It'll be in the show notes too. I know why that happened. I do know why. It's because I set it up with just my front name. My front name.
Hey, it works.
when I was quickly setting up the webinar. So anyway, thank you so much, Adina. Sure. Actually, if we want to continue the conversation for members, I do have...
I was thinking we could do that.
Yeah, so. Exactly. We can have a little bit more discussion about the issue, the big shift.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you being here with us live. Thank you for sharing this with your friends. And if you're listening to the recording, I appreciate you too. It's not like I don't. And for those of you members, we appreciate you there too. And if you want to become a member, go to kingdomtalksmedia.com and click on the membership button and join us on Patreon, because there is where you get all of the behind the scenes stuff and cool extras and bonuses and freebies and all of that. So
all right, so we're going to go ahead with the outro, little video thing, and then so we'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Kingdom Talks with Gil Hodges. You can find us on Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube, and on the Fringe Radio Network on Spreaker. Please subscribe and share with your friends. Find links to all media outlets, the 3 Plumb Lines Pledge, and become a member at kingdomtalksmedia.com. Thank you for your support, and thank you for keeping us in prayer. Until our next broadcast, God bless and Godspeed.